So there's been a great conversation with Jacques Soelberg. We talked about life as a CRO, what to think about, what has been the changes from going from a VP to CRO, C-level. And we talked about tech stack, we talked about ramping and scaling teams, new markets, the difference about different cultures. It's been a really interesting and fun conversation. I'll hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the pod, Jacques.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yes.
26 years in sales.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
14 of those in Salesforce.
Yeah.
From individual contributor to senior area vice president and country manager.
Yep.
Quite a ride.
It is.
And now CRO in Promon.
Yep.
High growth, juggernaut,
Yeah.
Norwegian company.
Yeah. Worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
quite a journey.
It is. It is. And not always straight on journey, right? So it has been bumpy left and right, but yeah, upwards and onwards, right? But yeah, not always as easy as people think, right? So
what is the least obvious reason why you have had your success?
the least of the reasons.
The least obvious one, because
The
I
least
mean,
obvious one.
you know, because I guess like hard work and business acumen and standing on your toes.
And I could give you the story of the hardworking Jacques,
Yeah.
and absolutely. But I think it's also I think the coincidence or the domino effect is starting if you pick out the right companies and you start your career in ambitious, high growth companies. And then, of course, things can go the shitty way. But most likely, if you find your rhythm in that kind of business, good things will happen. And then sometimes it is very by coincidence that you show up at the right time, things progress as you want, and then things just happened.
Yeah.
So the big, long career planning says, oh, Jacques, what do you want to do in the next 5 years or 5 years from now? I'm not sure you can do that. At least I have never done that. So things happen quite quickly. Then I think what has helped me, at least in my career, is just to say, holy moly, I'll jump into it. I'll do my best. Sometimes I will learn while doing, or build while sailing or flying or whatever that is. So I think that's the coincidence of things that will happen if you choose a little bit wisely to start with. So that means the due diligence when I'm going into a new position. Just be very mindful of what is actually going on.
It's like people say that in startups and scale-ups as well. Like, are you picking the right market?
Yes.
Because it's like it's gonna be, you can do all the right things, but if the market isn't there, it's gonna be really, really hard.
Really tough.
But I think what you're saying resonates. Like we worked in Salesforce for many years, and it is a generational company.
It is.
One thing that I sometimes struggled with was the fact that, a little bit of an imposter syndrome, like were I just here on the right time? Like did I just, I remember when I closed my first big deal and I literally thought to myself, this is only luck. You're only here because you were, in the market at the right time. And then when I did the second big one, I kind of, that eased in a little bit. I got like, okay, maybe I have some skills at least. There's just not, how have you tackled, that? Because obviously 14 years in a 30% growth every year globally.
I would say I still have it. So the imposter syndrome, and it keeps coming back. And then you could say, oh yeah, 26 years in sales, Jacques, and you've done really well. I still have to remind me, I don't know, every month that I'm actually capable of doing it, and not everything is by coincidence or luck. But it's coming back again and again, and I think it's it's also the goodness of that, if I could turn it into something positive, is the paranoia of a good AE, a good sales manager, a good VP, a good CRO is unfortunately the paranoia, because it keeps you on your toes and it constantly navigates in the known, the uncharted territory. If a roadblock is coming, then you are quickly on it. So you don't get too content to like, maybe it will solve itself, because it will not, right? So
a little bit of paranoia is always good, especially in sales, when people literally are saying one thing because they have the right intentions. You know, like they think, you know, that this is the way that they're gonna sign this contract, but they have never done it before.
Nope.
So then the curveballs arrive.
Yeah, so I think it's quite widespread in our business of line, and especially in software selling, where you have to. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that needs to be in control, and if you don't have a little bit of a imposter syndrome, because I could also turn it around and say, if you don't have it, then you will be so self-confident that you are not inviting any other people into the group. So the team selling, the good SE, the good CEO or exec that needs to sponsor your deal, it's not arriving because you don't ask those questions, right?
Yeah, and and also I think that when you are on the ball and you're on your toes, you can also create your own luck. You were saying like, okay, I got lucky, but you know, if you're not playing the game, you're not going to be able to receive that luck either, right? So
no, exactly, and it's the luck, and then we could talk about the art of selling or the science of selling. And I think there is definitely two sides of the game, and you need both. But without the science, and that's at least what I had out of my 26 years, is if you don't have science into the deal, the magic will never happen, right?
Yeah.
Because it goes that way. But starting all with magic, and you also have very charismatic salespeople, and you have the ones that are dominating the room when they're getting in, you also need some science.
So what's the equation there? How much science, how much luck? Like if you could put a little bit of a potion and you're like, here, drink, Mr. or Mrs. AE, have this. What is, how much science, how much luck?
I think it depends a little bit on, again, to you, what is it that you're selling, and how concrete is the product vision to that market. Do you have great references when you are selling and so on? The more you have there, the less magic you actually need. Because I would also say, I would say straight out of the box, it could be 70-30. So 70 science, 30 magic, but it varies. And I've also seen extremely magical salespeople sell something and succeed with it just out of the fire in the eyes, the passion. Because I've also seen the 90-10 sellers. That means 90% science. And then it just becomes like, why should I buy from you? And then you could say, and I still, that is applicable in 2024, is without the relationship, without the passion, without the fire in the eyes, come on, it's why am I buying from you? So I think it's a good mix. But you have to be conscious that the pure magical guys that has been selling out of their Rolodex and good coffee drinkers, nice to hang around, in this new landscape that I've seen after COVID, is it's so fact-based. You could also argue, and we can talk about that later, but the whole funnel of selling has just fundamentally changed. So that means you had more time back in the old days to do your magical thing. Now the window of doing magic is still there, but it's way, way shorter. And the people that you're sitting in front is most likely much more educated than you think they are.
I guess also maybe it depends a little bit on which stage of the company you're in, like, because in the beginning, like, now you guys are in the scale up promo, and it's like you have found, you're landing some really nice big deals, etc. Then you can't afford as much of the magic, so to say, because if you have, then you might close a deal on a use case that isn't 100%. So it was, new ARR, but net churn will, eventually go down, right? Or up.
And you're spot on. And I think that's maybe coming from Salesforce into Little Promon, and we are roughly 110 people, right? So still a sizable company, but still small compared to a big supertanker like Salesforce. So I think what I have underestimated and what I'm starting to cherish now is also, and I've seen that with Salesforce, but I call it the scalability, but also the repeatability of things. So that means if you have a big customers, and we are landing those now, if you cannot replicate that motion or say, certain of the things I've done, I can do again. And by the way, I'm not selling totally out of the box. So that also means when the happy AE and the happy VP has done a sale, then it's actually something that we have on the shelf instead of saying, oh, you got this little chunk of Promon, but by the way, I have promised your firstborn and all of the things you have ever had, I've sold them as well. So it has to be that kind of predictability, scalability that you teach and learn people to sell within the box, and then be creative around that, but not too creative.
So how are you, because I guess also there is a balance there, especially when you come into a CRO level, about like, maybe the heart of Jacques would love a little bit more, jazz.
Yes.
But, the CRO Jacques kind of wants to, would you, if you have 10 salespeople, would you then prefer them to do 90% now when you have a repeatable business? Do 90%, science and 10%, or would you like, how is your mixture in your sales team look like, and how does it look today, and how would you maybe then prefer it to look like?
Yeah, no, but that's a good question. I think, I know I will lean more towards the little bit more black and white, the little bit more scalable AEs. And I know when we are having a sales process following the value selling, the different stages that we have aligned, the MedPick methodology that we are using quite strict. I need people to follow that. Otherwise, me controlling a bigger audience will be very, very hard. And it will also give, because that's another one, and I'm not saying that because there is room for magical people in Promon, but not like that they are inventing the deep dish or doing a new thing on the stage without rehearsing. I think there has to be room for that, because they also do something around the more strict AEs on how they do business. So it has to be a blend. But I'm leaning towards more the prediction, the I don't know, that you can tell the AEs are doing exactly what they want. Because what many, I don't know, underestimates is then everybody is talking about data science and, we have to be analytical. And I'm not sure what that means. If you do not have a predictable process, how have you sold? What does stage 1 means? What does stage 2 means for you? Because then you have no idea on if it's all magical. Why is it going really well? And why is it not happening? So you need more data points in order to direct people to say, you are actually super fantastic at discovery, but the minute it goes into to a proof of concept or something, then you're not able to control the process. You're not able to get the audience to buy in on your product. Therefore, you are not reaching contract negotiation stage. So it's taking those things out of the selling process and then making the best out of it.
I guess like it's a little bit like in professional sports, like I am the coach, and like you might be Messi, and I know you can do whatever you want with the ball, but in Barcelona or now in US, we're playing this way, so I need you to follow our game plan and not deviate too much. And sure, like if you have 15 opportunities in a year, I don't really care if you do one or two that is a little bit special, or you go into a or other vertical that we're not usually trying to sell to. But if you all of a sudden have all of your stuff in different things, it's gonna be probably harder for them to succeed, even though they are messy.
Exactly, and the Messis of the world, and I have the Messis of the world in Promon, and I've had that in Salesforce as well. It's a little bit because the Messis of the world will somehow, and I mean all goodness in that, they will always make it somehow. But I also think, or we can take Ronaldo if we stay in the in that terminology, is also if you have a highly skilled salesperson, and he's actually recognizing that where am I playing on the court? How do I take, where do I have the best position on the field? If you get that around him, then he will not just shine, he will outglow everyone, right? So I think it's a lot of change management. And of course, I've also seen the salespeople that are, successful and they are hitting their targets, maybe not massively overperform, but they do okay. Those guys and girls, they have a tendency to very hardly stick to whatever they have done before because, it's not bad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest, surprise, going from a VP level to a C level?
And all respect to VPs, I think they see part of the game. Having your hand on the full P&L and also navigating in uncharted territory around, we are owned by Grow Capital, a private equity, an active owner, and Kirkby, the Lego family. Very active owners. How do you cope with that? How do you sit in board meetings and trying to convey the strategic approach versus, and then when you have active ownership, it can also be very tactical suggestions and recommendations that goes back. Finding the level of that and navigating that, and also in Promon, and now we're doing extremely well, but money is also a factor. So there's a lot of things that I want to do, but I simply don't have the budget to do. So I think being a CRO is also the broader audience. The whole revenue channel has been quite a learning journey for me, because now suddenly, at least in Salesforce, I was when I was a VP, I was in charge of the ACV, so new value coming into the books. Now I have to take care of downsell, churn, upsell, net retention rate, rule of 40. So rule of 40 is how much do you grow and how much is your EBITDA margin together. Should be higher than 40. So there's a lot of considerations that it's not all around go run, go sell. It always have to come with a mind of the balance in the books, I would say.
And you say like you have to manage this, PE, the ownership. Like, so what has been, like if someone is coming into this role and they're like, okay, I'm going into a PE backed firm.
Yeah.
What is the biggest learning there? How are you managing that relationship?
I think it's and of course it depends on the private equity or the venture capitalist that is owning the company, on how close they want to be on the decisions and how that dynamic is. I've been super lucky, as Grow has Grow Capital has a growth formula. So pretty strict, structured like I am. So I think there's a good fit, and I did quite some due diligence before saying yes to the job. That was a mix. Otherwise, if you're constantly in a fight with owners, I don't think that journey will end up somewhere nice, right? So I think that's one. And then and it's not a requirement, but it actually gave me some insight. I did the board meeting education at Copenhagen Business School. So at least I had the toolbox in order. So I somehow knew what would I expect the board will, when to discuss when and how and so on. So I think that gave me a little bit a more holistic view than being a sales VP, because that is difficult and struggle, but it's only part of the picture, right?
Yeah, you're running in one lane, and that's you have one main KPI that you're focusing on.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would say you get, and it's like a Swiss army, and I think I'm running marketing, I'm running traditional sales, customer success, and you could say Promon was even in a situation when I came in that we had a rock star product, but it was a single stream product. The product vision, the architecture of the platform was not really there. So the differentiator, the value selling, the verticals, the personas, how do you attack that? So I had to change that game into a more structured product management that were able to take the feedback from the sellers and actually embed that in the product, and making sure that the visuals, the presentations, when a seller is standing in front of a customer, actually to articulate what is coming. And I think that's also what I've seen with coming from Salesforce and back in the days when I was in my kitchen and sitting there cold calling and pretty frustrated, and we called out and said Salesforce. And there was actually a company in Hørsholm at that moment that called Salesforce, that was a temp agency. So they all of them, thought I was calling from the temp agency, selling them whatever, right? And having that in my back pocket to actually realize, and having the elevator pitch and so on, has massively helped me at Promon, because and most people that will listen into this one, Promon, what are you guys doing? They don't know. And now you could say, I will be able to stand in an elevator, and all of my salespeople will stand when they are sitting at the dinner table with friends, meeting customers and so on. What is Promon? And Promon is, if you know the driver's license, sundhedskortet, the medical health insurance card, we are protecting your data for hackers to steal them, and making sure that you always stay safe. And we have invented small elevator pitches for different audiences, so they know exactly how that is presented. So we are absolutely sure. And I think when thinking of it, you have been through that school, Anders, as well, is all of the certifications, the elevator pitches that we did in Salesforce, the quarterly upskilling courses on when something new come. I do that with our sales academy structure in Promon, and it is something that I've seen. And I know I'm a little bit way off topic, but in the Scandinavian culture, we have a little bit of a, hey, let's go to the customer, then we have a talk, and then we figure out where the conversation will lead us in the meeting. Where opposed to the US, and there are many things that we do better than the US, but I bet you when a US sales rep is coming to a meeting, he knows his first call deck, he has prepared, he knows exactly at least how the first 10 minutes of that conversation will go. And we have a little bit of that in Promon as well. It's just, hey, I know the product. Let's take the meeting and let's see where that leads.
I actually did fundamentals of selling course in university in the States.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is the best thing to do. I think you're probably better off just like join as an intern in some kind of boiler room scenario for a couple of weeks. But it was, in terms of how the cultural structure is, like it was one of the main things that I remember this professor, like when you go into a meeting, you need to have your A, B, C priority. Like it's like if you can't get A, try to get B, and you always leave with at least C. Exactly. And that is, I guess, a little bit of a difference from the US versus the Scandinavian mentality. You kind of like wing it a little bit.
Exactly, and it's, I think that also comes with age and everything. But I start to cherish a little bit more the A, B, and C. But at least you know what's the A is and the B is, and where do you pivot. Otherwise, it will be a little bit on anarchy, and it will be customer controlling that meeting, right?
It's also like some of the things that we had in Salesforce was something we took for granted. Like like we just got so much resources, and it was like I mean, we were the first marketing cloud AEs in the Nordics, and like it was like doing a startup on a cheat code. You have unlimited resources. So it was you need that. Let me just call headquarters, and they just like send someone in. But it's I think what's really interesting now, like when you're building as well, is that every little thing that is tweakable that you have to think about. It's like what is it in a demo or a first call deck that I lead with? Like how can I? And it's easy to go on like autopilot and like I do this, I present that, and I go to that feature, and then I tell a story about that, and then talk about ABC, instead of like what will have the biggest impact on this.
Exactly.
I've been helping a client out with some RFP processes now, and I've been sitting on the other side of the table when the salespeople are pitching. And I've learned so much about what not to do in this process that I also realized that I am doing. Like from like a multi-threading perspective. Like everyone will say that multi-threading is crucial. And it absolutely is. But how are you multi-threading? And a lot of salespeople, they're like, oh, I need to contact, I need to have a touch point, I need to like, but they don't come with any value in that touch point. So then instantly you become a nagger. Like it's
just asking for an update.
I've told you, I will, we will have a sit down after I've seen all the demos, all the presentations. And it's like, I think those kind of things is also when you're in a big machinery, a lot of those kinks sometimes has been worked out, and you're like, this is how we do it. But when you're scaling or starting, you kind of have to have take the time to actually have to sit down and say like, how are we getting the biggest bang for the buck? Like, how are we doing this process? What is our actual methodology? I think it's pretty.
And I think you are very right. And you could say now, you being that many years with Salesforce, me as well, I think it's only the minute you sit on the other side of the table that you actually figure out, holy moly, how many assets, resources, good things that has been thought through, just spoon feed it to me on when to do what, how to do it, what was the narrative, the value statements, all of that. And coming into a scale up, I would say, where you don't, do we even agree on what is the first call deck? Do we have updated product slides? All of these, right?
The guy in Hong Kong is building his own deck, and the one in Dallas is having a third one.
Exactly.
And it's like our branding isn't. We have 10 different cultures. Like it's it's
and that's welcome to Promon back in the days, right? Which is totally fine. But at a certain point, if you're not consistent in your brand, your value stories, and all of that, you will lose out, right?
It'll be hard to scale, and it's also get confusing for the people on the other side. Wait a second, I thought you did, this. Now you're telling me something else. It's,
and a little bit controversial, maybe, and I've seen that with many companies that I visit during my Salesforce period, but also customers that I sit in front of now is forecasting. How do you do that? How do you do predictable forecasting, intelligent commitment? And secondly, also, I call it, at Salesforce, I think it was Sales Central. Where do you go as an AE and a VP to get the latest slide deck, the product sheets, everything in Promon, and we are looking at that right now. Is then we have SharePoint, we have Salesforce, we have Slack, we have something called Confluence, we have something called Notion, and in all of these systems, documents presentation lives. So that also means when a seller that has to be efficient, use that time in the best manner, they're using that time looking for the newest first call deck, which should be a given in any company. But I think that is that's not only Promon, that is just startup scale-ups, right?
And also bigger companies. I mean, even in Salesforce, we were using High Touch, I think it was called.
High Touch.
And then that became like a well of just PowerPoints and Google Slides.
All kinds of things.
Yeah. But how do you succeed in that then? Because I mean, I one of my Gong. Are you using Gong?
No.
Nobody's using Gong.
Many actually has a recommendation around it.
Everybody's talking about Gong. Nobody's using Gong, especially when you talk to salespeople. Like you're just like, I have yet to, if someone is listening and using Gong, well, please let me know, because like everyone says it's great, but we never have time to use it.
No,
and it's the same, I guess, with this kind of asset management. It's great, but nobody has time to do it. So like, will you have resources then to hire a person that only is doing that? Because I guess that's the answer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually just hired one, and we put a leader behind it, and he's running, which is a combination, you could say, the sales academy of upskilling of AEs and sales resources and how we do that, and then combined with and it sounds awfully old school, but a good old sales handbook that has a real responsibility in updating everything that goes into it. Then I think we have two things that will enable AEs at least to have more efficient time, not looking around too much and knowing the elevator pitch, the value selling. That's where we have started now. We've just done a survey for for the EMEA team, and 70% of their time is non-productive. So that means internal collaboration, which is of course needed in some way, looking for documentation, talking to customer success if, shit hits the fan with a customer and stuff like that. All something that we of course need to handle. But imagine if I just do 50-50 on that. That will have a major impact on our productivity, AE productivity, time in front of the customers, all of that, right? So
okay, so I want to go back to that in a second, but now you're talking about like getting this higher. Like, how do you justify? Because like, if you're not quota carrying, you're basically a cost. Like
that's true.
It is. So how do you justify that cost, and how are you thinking about it, and how does the process look like for you to say, actually, we're going to invest a lot of money, because with also social contributions and taxes and everything, especially here in the Nordics, like there's a significant investment that you could potentially get two other junior A's for that would actually
quota carrying people, right?
Yeah. So how do you justify it? How is that process looking?
And I would say I'm a little bit more lucky in that sense because I have a grow and a very knowledgeable board that will cherish and value that. What I do try, and then you could say for the sales academy and for the sales centrals and all of that we are building up, if I can show that it influences the AE productivity, because we have AE productivity measured, that will hopefully get better of that initiative. So that is correlated, but creating KPIs for, and actually something I did, customer success management is also a cost, if you could say so.
Yeah.
But now they are measured on upsell capabilities, net retention rate, and of course the churn rate that we have. Those are the three metrics that they are measured on, and actually because you could say customer success, many of the roles I've seen in other companies are not bonus compensated on that. My customer success department is 70-30 compensated on that. So that means, they will be heroes if they achieve a good result and also paid on it. But it's also the opposite. So they are in the same boat as the sellers to make sure that we are upselling our existing customer base, we are cross-selling, and so on and so on.
But isn't that like a risk? Because the minute that you put a quota on a customer success manager, they're not actually, it's very easy that they not become a customer success. Right. Like I have one of my vendors right now who is literally trying to push me into a 3-year commitment from a 1 year. Mm-hmm. And the only reason for that is because he obviously has a KPI on that. Yeah. And I'm actually a very happy customer. So I will probably, I can say that because this won't air until renewed, but I will probably go with that 3-year. Yeah. But this does change the dynamics a bit.
It does, and it becomes a little bit more sales-ish. But on the other side, if you don't put sales incentives and put them where it actually is, they are able to change it. Because I would argue we have changed the frequency on how frequently we reach out to our customers every quarter. They get a look under the hood on what's new in the version. They try to do the health assessment dashboard and so on. If you are getting as a trusted advisor there, then of course you have to be mindful on how sales pushy you are. But I would still argue that's where the trusted selling can happen, right?
Yes. I think that the way that I would set it up, is that I would probably still have like the churn and net retention rate as a hard KPI for the success manager.
Yep.
And then within the same team, so that they report to the same manager, I would have an upsell person that is then working across portfolios. So the success manager can have, because also a lot of the times there's different personas. They are key account managers that are more farming in the best possible way. I'm not saying that, but it's like that they are often not so comfortable with putting the confrontation and saying,
correct,
here it is. So then we offload that opportunity to that person. And since their net retention rate is still there, they get bonus on it. And then you can put a team bonus across. So they will recommend in. So they will be like, a growth person, you should talk to this client. Hey, client, you should talk to my salesperson. I am the trusted advisor. True. He is the salesperson, but everybody wins.
And I think what you are suggesting is best practice for me, and also a place I will go the minute twice our size. I think then we'll have it. And I would also say in the customer success management team, I have AE that came from AE, from hardcore selling, that was not maybe meant for him, but he is thriving in that role where he doesn't have to be super pushy, super targeted driven, but he's still sales-ish.
Yeah.
So I think it's the in-between that can actually fill that shoes for that role.
And I think also it depends on the segment as well, because you can be, like when you step into enterprise, you cannot be as transactional even as new business, because you can't you can't push 100K plus deal in just because of enthusiasm.
No.
And whereas like a 10K deal, nobody cares. You can also see that on the numbers now, right? It's like the deals between 10K and 200K has been shrinking the last year because, you know, the CFOs are just going slashing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I didn't approve that. I didn't approve that. That's some rogue VP that bought that system out, right? So
no.
it's
and you're right, and you're also alluding to, and that comes in customer success, but it also comes in the hardcore selling, the different sales motions. And I have been, I think over the last 2 years, and it took a while before the organization was actually ready for it. And we'll go full blown next year, and we're doing calendar year, so very soon that will be applied. Is the different sales motions, and then you could have different, but will have one strategic account management motion, hunt for the whales as we are calling it, and then the fat middle, which is a Salesforce terminology, or I don't know, Jacques Anders.
Big middle, I think is the political correct now.
Okay, sorry.
Fat middle, let's say it's body shaming. So,
okay.
Yeah, we say that in the Nordics.
Let's do big middle.
Yeah, Americanize it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the transactional sales that you will be fulfilled with our partners, and we will not even touch it because it's small deals, too expensive to handle. But the big middle deals, a little bit more science has to be applied, a little bit more rigor, a little bit more thought leadership. And then, of course, the strategic accounts, that is maybe 20 named accounts that we'll go after next year, a fully different motion. But also the nature of the people inside those boxes are very different. So that's how we want to structure it, and maybe making sure that the startup vibe, where you go left and right, and, you know, should we call this customer and this customer, and it has nothing to do with verticals or value selling. Now that we are putting that into place, and it will take some time before we fully get that, but I think we have, at least, you know, me coming into the business, our deal size has now tripled. And we have quadrupled our revenue. So I think motion and science matters.
That's fantastic numbers. Yeah, good work.
Yeah.
There's so many different questions I want to ask you about these things. But let's start with the latest topic we're talking about now. When you go into enterprise and named account, are you also changing the compensation model then for these like big bet AEs?
Yes, and it has always been, I think, one of the biggest struggles, at least also in Salesforce. Salesforce tried out a lot of different compensation, soft targets, giving very high targets on, you know, some big accounts. If you don't have, I would argue, and that's what we are looking into now, is giving 2-year targets, but figuring out how you want to pay the key account manager either quarterly or at least once a year in order to make a living, as all of our compensations for AEs is 50-50. So we need to figure out a middle ground on that for soft targets, behavioral things that we can measure and then compensate. So that is, at least for the smaller team that we have for the whale motion and the strategic accounts, is we're looking into 2 years compensation plans, where the big middle, high targets, high velocity. When we say high velocity, then it's sales processes between 6 to 12 months. So still longer sales cycles, where the others is 18 to 24 months at least. So that's what we're looking in for, because I've seen so many frustrated key account managers that says, hey, now you have these 10 wonderful greenfield accounts, and by the way, we expect you to do $2 or $3 million on that first year. And everybody knows that, you know, the likelihood of that will maybe not be that high.
No, it's in enterprise sales, it's hard to knock it out of the park the first year you step into a patch.
Yeah.
What's the average compensation that a salesperson gets on the ACV in Promon?
They get pretty well compensated, as we are still, I would say, we're still in an immature market and sometimes in front of immature buyers because mobile application security sounds like, yeah, I want to be protected on my mobile device. But when the reality hits, then we actually see, I don't know, 80% of the apps on the mobile phone is actually unprotected, which of course is a massive, massive opportunity for us.
Massive.
Because there's coming more regulation in that space around, take for example, mobile banks. And we have most of the bigger banks in the Nordics that are protecting, but we also see a lot of EMEA brands and APAC in US, and especially in US, where they don't really care. So if fraud is happening or attack is happening, then we'll fix it, and hopefully it's not too big of a mess. When coming into an immature market and immature buyer, we have a compensation that says there's, I don't know, roughly getting between 10 and 13% per dollar that they are selling. So quite high. And if you compare that to Salesforce, most likely you and I, we actually started out on that level.
Yeah.
And then slowly, as the market are getting more mature, that compensation packet will dilute over time. So that means 3-4% or something like that, right?
And then you need to have a PhD in compensation plans, because you can't even understand what says there with target incentive-based packages and multipliers depending on your renewal rate.
And one of the things where I would say coming into my new job as a CRO was one of the biggest, like, holy moly, that is complicated. And at Salesforce, we had a big compensation team that was super, super strong on how to do that. I don't have that. So that also means many of the things I'm doing together with our CFO. And then we have to figure out the budget. And of course, figuring out we want the heavy growth. But the minute you're asking for heavy growth, you are also asking for an increased compensation to all of the AEs, the SEs, and the ones that are getting it. Are they aligned? Are they correlated? Are we taking a big risk on how we compensate? So that is so tough.
So from a person that's only been a VP, I think, like, isn't it like it's probably like taxes, right? Like everybody says we should just have a flat tax rate for everyone, and then everything will be fine. And what is the risk from a CFO perspective, I guess, then, and a CRO perspective, that, okay, why couldn't we just say that, okay, you get 13% up to 100% of your target, and then you get multipliers, and then back after 200% you get 5%, because we don't want you to grow too fast.
Exactly, and that's what we are doing. So, but the transparency is maybe okay on AE level, but then there is ASEs. Do they get a regional target so they don't favorize certain AEs? How do we compensate customer success for the net retention rate and churn? There's many complexities around. So how we are looking at it at the moment is when you are dragging in a deal, then we actually look at the TCV of the deal. So the ACV multiplied with so many years, the TCV, the total contract value, how much payout do we have year one in order to clear up our commission scheme? Because when I entered into Promon, they didn't really had a quota AEs, which were kind of mind-blowing, but now we have changed that. And then they got a certain percentage on all renewals, all sales, which were a little bit of a happy-go-lucky strategy, because you could say we have, how much? We have roughly 5% churn, which is kind of low in our market. But that also means, is somebody actually doing something that will impact the renewal, and should they get compensated on it? So what we have decided in order for a compensation strategy, and I also know, and I know that as a salesperson as well, you can control people's behavior with a good structured commission plan.
100%.
So we have different components coming into it. We have a new logo, extra bonus that they will get paid if we are tracking in. We are a growth business, so we do fantastic upsell, but I cannot live off that. So I need new logos where we can grow off next year again. So we have that into it, and then we had all kinds of mechanisms. I basically maybe together with the CFO, we maybe overcomplicated a little bit. So we had different thresholds. When 0 to 25% of your quota, you got 1%, and then it went up. Now we actually have a linear percent from 0 to 100, and then then it actually is multiplying. And of course, the more year you book, you get multipliers as well. So quite a simple structure. It also means that when you don't have a commission model where you can see how much money I'm actually earning, then it's easier for the AEs not to give away discounts, because that's also a vehicle for not giving away discount. Is I sell for 100, I know exactly what I'm getting out.
Yes, and I guess there's different parts there as well. I mean, the solution engineer, if transparency is I understand why that can be hard, right? Because it's what's fair and what's unfair, and and I did all the job of demoing and what I've always said to my SE friends is that you're doing all the job that is true. Like, you are the brains of this operation. I'm taking all the stress. It's because it's my quota, and if I don't hit that quota, I will get fired. Not 100%, but like it's if I don't hit quota consecutively, and don't have a good explanation of why I'm not doing it, then I will get fired.
And hey, Anders, you are using exactly my phrase, because I think in discussions I had, the SEs we have is super skilled, and I also say without a very good SE, no sale will happen. At least in a highly complex solution selling mode. You need that guy or girl with that skills. But to that point, and we've had that discussion, and it's not a secret, I've had many discussions with the SEs, looking at the AEs, maybe sometimes smiling all the way to the bank. But hey, they are running the risk and the stress, but I think mostly the risk of, because the SEs are more, I don't know, they will not be replaced as fast as an AE.
And they also get usually a higher base salary.
So
it's also that, and that becomes the biggest, I want to keep my base as same, but I want to have the OTE of a, AE, and then that conversation. And a lot of the times you don't see you see and I've even been there, like, what is some of these AEs even doing? Like their first call deck, and then like, here, let me introduce you to my SE, and then they sit back. But it's I also think like having those conversations up and in the open just helps, because then it doesn't become a mystery why the salesperson. And some years there's always one or two that does really well, but there's also a couple that doesn't do it so well. That's just the bell curve of it, right? So, and you don't really see those people.
And the bell curve and the outliers, yes, they will be called out, but the SEs will not be. They don't see the guy, girl making 10% of their quota, really struggling, and then getting maybe not that good of a base salary, right?
It's and it's when you're setting targets. There's a lot of talk about bigger targets, smaller targets. To where have you landed on setting a target that is, I guess, achievable? What's your framework on? I guess if you condense it, I saw yesterday one thought leader, if you can call them that. There's a lot of thought leaders out there. But he was saying, I've never seen a situation where you have smaller targets and you haven't achieved higher revenue. And I feel that it's a little bit counterintuitive. I can understand that if the AE feels that, like we had 1 year in Salesforce where we got insane massive increase in our quotas, and everyone, the entire sales floor, like all the AEs just went like, how's it going? You ask them, and then they say, my big bet for the year is, and then, okay, when is it coming? And then it was always December or January, end of the fiscal year.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, then obviously the target was so high that they didn't focus on the run rate, the big middle. They just had that elephant, because without it, they wouldn't be able to achieve it. So obviously then you probably get rid of a lot. You probably lose some opportunity in the lower deal bands.
Correct.
But if you set it too low, you know,
you'll go for the lower deals, right, or the smaller deals.
Maybe. So where have you landed?
And welcome to my everyday here, Anas. So I think there's two shocks in this. So the nice, polite sales guy, Jacques, that has been an AE and a VP and see the struggle of it, to be mindful of how achievable is your quota, and the AE participation that I'm looking really, really into almost every week. How do we make sure that enough AEs are somehow near their quota? And you could say an average, and I tried to study that, the average AE participation and how many that will achieve their quota is around, if you take the bigger software techs and some of the others, it's between 50 and 60%, not more than that. Then you will have overachievers and you will have underachievers. And I think it also sets a little bit of the tone on how achievable should your quota be when you are hitting your OTE. That's one. I think in order to create growth, as I'm doing now with Promon, and Salesforce has been in the same league of that. So now it's the CRO, Jacques, speaking. Highly aggressive quotas needs to be set in order to achieve that growth.
Okay.
And it sounds a little bit too cold, to a little bit more analytic, but I would still argue, if you're not putting a very aggressive target in front of salespeople, they will not achieve as much. So then you could argue, okay, holy moly, do I have a ton of AEs going out the door saying that I will not achieve the quota? I would say until now, and I have doubled the quotas since I've been here. So double last year, double this year, and I will double again third year of my Promon journey.
But are you doubling the AE quota or the team quota?
The AE quota.
Okay, so they're doubling every year.
Yep. And I of course, I'm not blind, so I will see the AEs that have struggled the year before, saying, you coming and asking me that, you know, I reach 35 to 40% of my quota, and now you're asking me to double while not even hitting the quota last year. And yes, I am, because then they are starting to be mindful, and it's a little bit uncomfortable. But if you continue as you did last year, you will miserably fail, and you will get no money out of Promon. So they need to reset themselves, and they need to scale. And of course, there will be people saying, you know, that's not for me. And I would a little bit harsh argue.
You're right.
Then, yeah, exactly.
So do you have a number where you're like, okay, I wish that 60% or 70% or 40%, like, is that?
Yeah.
So what is your number?
My number is, and I've said that to the board in no secrets, in that 65%.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And that, I guess, is that's also like the SaaS model, right? Because, you know, because I guess it starts top down. You have gotten a growth number from Grow and from the board, and saying, like, you need to grow minimum 30%, because if you don't get 30%, we're not getting high growth multipliers, and it's going to be less sales in the future.
Exactly.
So like, then it's just smack on 30%, and then you need, you know, how many percentage are you putting in a buffer there to, like, because so like 30% growth.
Yeah.
What is it that you calculate then in order for the CFO to feel comfortable comfortable in quotation marks.
The level and there's different levels between the AEs and VPs. This year actually, we had a little bit of a bigger buffer cushion between me and the VPs and the AEs. That was actually 30%. This year, or the year 25 that we'll go into shortly, is 20. So we lowered the cushion a little bit. I would say the cushion can go down and the buffer can go down the minute you get more predictability in your forecasting model and you are getting more stable AE performance. Then you are not needed to do, I don't know, a big buffer because in Salesforce, we have actually, and I've learned that while leaving Salesforce, there's actually a big buffer going on from the very top to the AEs, right? And in Promon, we try to minimize that. That also means that I will also be more alert in quarters when deals are starting to slide. I don't see a reverse timeline. I don't see the predictability going into the forecasting. Then the VPs will be in trouble, and of course the AEs as well. So the more you control that sales process, that forecasting motion, and this year, and knock on wood and everything, we've had a forecast accuracy plus minus 3%.
Oh, that's really good.
Really, really good. And that also means when I'm sitting and having those conversations with the CFO, with the board around buffers and quotas and how we want to assign them, then I can take easily 10% away because I know that I will have a predictable outcome. So I don't need, I don't know, a big security net under me in order to roll out that quota.
We can say as a reference as well, like if 3% is really good, like if you put a sales director or a VP of sales on a PIP, you want them to be within 5%. That's usually like,
exactly.
But in reality, if that VP is doing okay, you know, they often fluctuate between 5 to 10%.
Yes.
So it's so having 3 is like outstanding.
It's outstanding, and a little bit of luck has been added to that as well, which is really good. But I would say at least the board I have now and Grow and our new CEO, I think 10% will be tolerated, right? But not more than that.
No, because then it's getting hard, and you're like you're growing your sales teams as well, and then all of a sudden there's one person that completely is off 100%. That's not going to work. But predictability, like how are you ensuring predictability? What type of tools and systems are you having in place?
Yeah, so the predictability comes with quite some rigor in in Salesforce, and we are basically using the forecast tab in Salesforce, where every AE, every leader, has, of course, have their quota visible there, and then we are doing a coverage model, and the coverage model is spun out of some data science. Of course, we're using a little bit of the Einstein analytics from Salesforce opportunity scoring that will give a little bit more insight. We are using a lot the MedPick from More Certainty into that. So we are scrutinizing the deals and the opportunities a little bit more and making sure that it sits in the right stage. And then what we have done quite some data analysis on is when is the bucket leaking. So that means we know exactly from stage 1 to stage 6, when is it that a deal is likelihood to win or lose or drop out, right? And our analysis now is, and it's actually a little bit high in Promon, it's 4x. So when I'm looking for a 4x is an unweighted pipeline. That's my first data point.
Meaning that you want to have 4x pipeline to quota.
Correct.
That is a little bit high, yes.
It's a little bit high. I would say it's 3.2, 3.1 as a benchmark. But in Promon, in another mature market, sometimes not mature buyers, we do see dropouts, even though we try to do world-class discovery and all of the analysis there to see if we actually do we want to spend time on that opportunity. And it's a constant battle, by the way, because when you are coming out of a startup motion, people will have a tendency to say, hey, if I just show you the product, then most likely they will buy. But what we learned in our data discovery quite early was, if we do a POC too soon, showing them the product, the likelihood of us winning that deal is very, very low. So now we are building up the opportunity. So the scrutiny in the forecast situation is, I think we have win rates as an average around 30-35%, which is pretty good. I would say.
Yeah.
It's good. But then we also see in certain verticals and in certain partner-led opportunities, we have a win rate that is 9, 12, 15%.
Okay.
We just have to be mindful when we are doing forecasting. What is the vertical? Who is leading the sales motion? And then, of course, we are also starting, and that's where the VPs has stepped up quite a lot over the last 2 years, is we have the human factor as well into that. Even though the system will tell us a lot of things, then it's Jacques sitting somewhere, and he's always over-optimistic, and the deals are sliding. And then we also have the A's that says, most likely I'll have deals that are really, really fast moving in the deal cycles, like 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, and then suddenly closed. That is also a wrong behavior. So there's a lot to the art of and science of forecasting into that.
What's your 80-20? Like when you are sitting with your VPs, like take MedPick for example. What are you like? What are you looking at the most?
The MedPick, I'm always looking for value metrics and champion and stakeholders. Those are the most that I will. What we have spiced up our selling with now is the MedPick and the MedPick scoring that will be handled by the AEs and the VPs. What we have added to that that will influence the MedPick score as well is we have a SE point of view.
Yeah.
So that means in order to triangulate on the specific opportunity, I need the SEs to take a step up on the in the sales, because the AEs will most likely say, yeah, Jacques, end of quarter, we'll definitely make it because they are pushed into a commit in the quarter. But then I see the SEs that are a little bit more blunt and more honest, if I could tell that, say, it will not happen. Or we have 10 outstanding things on the technical side. I don't see how we can make it. So we cross-correlate with MedPick, Einstein Intelligence, the value selling, the SEs, the AEs. And when I then do the 80-20 on an opportunity assessment, and every VPs, every Monday, by the way, because we haven't talked about that, but the cadence of such is Mondays, I have a meeting with all of my VPs. They do their commit. They do the waterfalls of the biggest deals that they have in that month, in that quarter. And then we do MedPick scrutiny. We do, and I do that on the call. I open all of the opportunities, and then we go one by one. We go through what are the actions, what do we need to do, what is our MedPick telling us, what is the Einstein scoring, and why is that rated? And then we have a conversation. And typically, as Promon is not that big, it's typically, I don't know, 5-7 deals per VPs. So it's not a massive one. I have all of my VPs for the different 3 regions, APAC, EMEA, and US, joining the same call, which is 1 o'clock, so everybody can be on that call. And then they start listening in so they understand what's going on, but also picking up what are AEs doing in other territories in order to learn. That has been a good motion. And then Friday every week, the VPs have their forecast call with the AEs. And then Tuesdays, I have it's in grow terminology. It's called troika calls. So then they scrutinize my commit with my waterfalls, and then every motion is into pieces, and I'm not caught off guard with. I think a certain deal will close, and then the AEs has forgot to update the notes, and then it's not in that quarter anymore.
Yeah, that's I don't care about the value of the deal. I care about when it will close.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Let's just circle back a little bit to the 70% of the time spent.
Oh yeah.
It's, we've been saying for years that, like technology would help us be more efficient.
Yep.
Like, and it is helping definitely. Like but I'm surprised that that number isn't lower. Like, because like now you have sequencing, and you have, you have Apollo, you have Outreach, you have all these tools, you have velocity selling and Salesforce. Like like you all do this. It's not called high velocity selling anymore. They changed the name. But anyway,
I can't remember.
You have all these tools that is helping the AE automate a lot of their processes. But still, we still get these data points. You just said 70%. We see from industry benchmarks that it's like, and one would assume or think that with this technology advances, that we would have more time actually selling. Like one of my biggest concerns for scaling my company is that, well, if a BDR, like, and I know you've gone into more full cycle AEs now, but if BDR still spends something like 40-50% on list creation, data clean, why would you hire a BDR to do that and not a data guy to do that? Like,
correct.
Where do you see the future is going? What tools do you think is needed to make it more efficient? And then, or is it that technology is actually, we are growing with complexity, and then we're not outgrowing the speed of health is not outgrowing the complexity?
I think this topic, and I think at least where I'm right now, and I see many other CROs, because I have a big network in the Grow family of CROs. I think the biggest mystery and the biggest riddle to solve is exactly this one. So that means we are saying that, and now we are using Salesforce, and both you and I, we're in love with Salesforce, and there are many things that they do extremely well, or at least better than the competition out there. But you could also argue, to your point around hiring a data guy that can do that cleanup, because I will still argue getting the tool stack in order to support the full cycle motion is super difficult. Because then I could say, and that's also my ask back, and that's what I see getting over on the other side of the table now, me buying Salesforce licenses. If I want to do a full cycle in Salesforce, I need maybe 10 different modules.
Yeah.
And then you could say, okay, it's one platform. Yeah, is it? And then how is that data flowing for a motion of a sales AE or BDR for that matter? Then you need to have sales engagement or sales outreach or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And then you need a classical CRM. You need Service Cloud. You need a marketing system that connects that data.
Yeah.
And then we haven't even talked about intent data and early funnel outreach, paid media, advertising, all of that. And then all of that is also around data quality. How do you get the latest and greatest on Anders, his phone number, email address that he maybe is not even longer with the company? So the complexity is quite big. So what I have done, and I can share that here, is I've changed the system stack quite a lot. I came to a Salesforce system that was sort of okay, I would say, but not really following the AE motion. And the minute you do that, then it becomes a phone book.
Yeah.
That's it, right? not real forecasting, not real deal cycle, not really opportunity management. So what I have done now is we have something called Sixth Sense, which is intent data. So that means you map out your named accounts, your patch, and then you begin to map out stakeholders. So that means whenever they are doing something, the key search terms are coming up, the intent data when they are actually in market, because that's also something that has changed enormously after COVID, is don't give me a call, don't approach me if I'm not ready to be in market. And then you could say, I had a talk with let's not name the company, but a CEO in US. He hired 3 BDRs, had a quite mature product, had 3 BDRs. They did 12,000 calls in 4 months. 12,000 calls. That's a lot. Got 4 meetings. Got 0 opportunities.
But then that is bad. Like there's
super bad.
Yeah, I mean there's so many things wrong with that statement. Like like either they haven't got trained, their ICP isn't correct, their buying persona is wrong. Like
fully,
they're calling. Are they like? Are we getting
calling in the wild? Right.
We're getting so many leads. Yeah, but kebab shops don't want app security.
Yeah. No, you're right. But it's to that statement. I think that also shows exactly to your point. There's so many things wrong with that. It could be cadence. It could be how they call, the setup, and so on. The strategy I've taken is, and we can have a discussion around that, is we actually got away from the BDR setup because we are in an immature market, and most likely a BDR setup can be fully functional and good if you have the structure that you just alluded to, right? But we are now doing Sixth Sense in a programmatic way on how to navigate the verticals, the personas we want to reach, the ICPs to that persona, and then we have a structure to say, now we are reaching out quite a big population. The minute somebody is looking above the screen and says, hey, maybe I'm interested, then we will be on their neck, right?
Is it working though? Because there's a lot of conversation about Sixth Sense online.
It's working because we are at least getting the intent data, and we are getting more, and then we have connected that with Sales Navigator from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So we are getting more insight into who's actually looking around.
Yeah. So for me, like I haven't used Sixth Sense. I used Apollo's intent data, and they're using Bambora or something. And for me, the biggest, it's a conversation starter. I feel like more that. Because I call different personas because I'm trying to nail my ICP, but I'm mostly calling either C-levels or VP in sales. And when I call C-levels, 100% not a good intent data, because it's like they're so usually far away from that. So, but then at least it's like, okay, well then someone in your organization is looking at that. Are you aware of it? So it becomes easier to have a pattern interrupt.
And you're spot on. I think the conversation starter is also something that Fromon has had a really tough time, because if you're calling out with application security, or Promon for that matter, they will just like, why should I talk to you? But
it's hard to create urgency around it.
Urgency and relevance. So the relevance is because we're also getting key search term. So to be a little bit technical, they're looking for obfuscation, which is scrambling the code in the app. That's something what we do. But if we call and say application security, they say, no. But then if we are using some of their key search terms, like obfuscation, they say, oh, okay, but hey, now I'm sort of interested. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So it's a conversation starter, and it leads also a little bit to the key stakeholders that might take a decision, or at least we use them in a referral situation, if somebody has done the Basho training, the why you now, and at least we are using some of that insights in order to create a better ICP and be more approachable to the right persona in the organization.
So you're using that 6 Sense data, and that is helping you then in your full cycle AE motion, because you're now then have a more intent, so the AE feels like he's not or she's not doing just the BDR job. There's actually, like, every time I pick up the phone and get through, there's a higher likelihood that they want to talk to me.
Exactly. And what then happens is, let's say we reach out and they are maybe not, what you call it, reachable, or they have the intent that 6 Sense set. Then that persona goes into our HubSpot. We have HubSpot for the marketing approach. Then they will go into nurture flows, where we are soft selling, thought leader, a lot of content, a lot of relevant content to their persona. And then we just do the brand management, thought leadership. And the minute they, of course, respond to a webinar, a folder, a formula or something, then we will reach out to them once again. That data, HubSpot, 6 Sense, goes into Salesforce and enrich the opportunity once it's there with the whole personas and so on. So the structure of the data and our tech stack, for that matter, is way better and way more connected. That also means, as I'm doing marketing as well, leading together with the CMO, of course, then we have influenced with content, we have influenced personas, we know which webinars they were on and so on. So we track full funnel on when we are spending marketing money, we can back that into a closed opportunity. And that is something that is very new to Promon as well.
So, because like the full cycle, I feel, I'm not sure about this, but I feel like when you get into true enterprise,
Yes.
like you kind of need help then with a BDR or junior AE to help with, because it's like, for me to run as a AE for a big enterprise, it's just gonna be, I don't have time for that. I have stakeholder management all the time. It's but for any like SMB, mid-market, small enterprise, it feels like there's a shift towards the full cycle, and then giving the infrastructure and the support around that AE, that, okay, you don't have a BDR, but you do have a list creator, you have a data cruncher, you have intent data, you have sequencing, you have a person that helps with sequencing, you have, like, you just click that this person should go into this nurture, and then there's a marketing person that has set up the marketing and creates content and all that.
And I would challenge myself, but also maybe everybody that is listening in, is if you do that automation really well, then you have reached a long way in order to ramp that scenario up to be quite efficient. What we have put on top is we have created a role for the non-B2B BDR with we call it account development representative, so ADR. So what they do is when somebody is looking above the screen and says, maybe I'm ready, then they will start the account intelligence motion. So that means they will trawl through the annual statement. They will go to web places. They will go to our vertical messaging and create a narrative to the AEs to say, when you are reaching out to this person, this is what you should be looking for. This is the elevator pitch. Here's what I learned. X, Y, Z, right?
So and how, again, because then it goes back to, okay, you're backed, you have pretty deep pockets, but this must be like an ROI discussion around that as well, right? So how did you end up saying, like, actually the BDR was it that the BDRs weren't efficient enough creating? So they didn't have enough leads basically coming, pipe generated basically,
and we still don't, right? So and of course every leader will say, we need more pipeline, but I think the number of pure inbound leads is not sufficient at the moment. So we have a lot of outbound activities, and creating that mixed motion is difficult.
I think the tech stack is also, it can so easily become like death by 1,000 cuts, because like
True.
you sit there and you just like you optimize and you don't do it like it's the same in marketing, right? We used to say that all the time. You don't do A/B testing. You just do A, you know, like it's,
exactly.
And you don't finish it. I find it's very interesting, and but if you can come to a conclusion, like if you can come to the end of that, you know, motion that you described, then the productivity should, you know, that the AE should logically have much more time, because there's streams of sales motions.
Correct.
You know, like it's like I don't have to think about prospecting as much, sequencing as much, you know, like it's just, this should be, if A happens, B, if C happens, D.
Correct. And just having that kind of overview into that, I think, and you know, it's the old school marketing complaining that sales are not picking up on the leads. Sales is saying, you know, I'm not getting enough leads, and marketing, you know, shit. And then actually, when you have this kind of full platform visibility, and regardless if it's 2 or 3 or how many systems, if you can pinpoint where in the process something is not according to standard, then you can address it. And it comes a little bit back to the A and B testing. Why, you know, why the heck would you continue to do something that is not driving leads? Stop it.
So who like who's your dream team then to create this motion? Because like I'm thinking as a founder here, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can see, you know, I see it on the horizon. I have Apollo there, you know, or sequencing. I have intent data. I have my CRM. Like right now, the way I'm trying to keep it simple. So I have Salesforce as single source of truth, because I'm, you know, I'm true blue. And then you know, but every lead that I generate is generated in Apollo. When it becomes an opportunity, it's pushed to Salesforce. And then I have my parallel dialer that is connected to that, so I can be more efficient in my day-to-day. But like when you talk about this, I see I probably have a lot of the tech stack, but I don't have the expertise to set up what you're talking about.
And that's and you could say I'm beginning to have that, but I haven't had that. So it requires either a very good partner that has this full visibility. I would just argue, at least when I'm seeing in the Nordics, not many of consultancy houses has that, to be honest. So that's a big challenge, I would say. I had to hire people, so I have a dedicated demand gen manager for each of the regions. So that means at least they have the full cycle from intent to an opportunity is created. They will have visibility, and they will have visibility and hopefully skill enough in order to see the full stack, regardless of integrations and so on. But I would still argue we have integrated 6 Sense with HubSpot with Salesforce, and a little bit harsh said, every of that system came with, hey, it's pre-integrated, it's click, done. But I've used 1.5 million Norwegian on that one, just doing the integration.
Yeah, that's 150,000 euros.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not that easy, right? So it requires. So I can imagine if you are a smaller shop and, you know, 10-man band or even less, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah, then you have to focus on the KPIs that matter. Right now, like I sent a message to my partner. Like right now, I have an insane rate of booking meetings. Like
good.
But I think it's because I have now picked up the consistency. So instead of doing one day here and one day there. I do a little bit every day, so I'm just a little bit better.
Okay.
And tone is it's like I'm just slowing it down
Okay.
and then being very clear on why I'm calling. So and it's I'm calling less than an hour a day now the last week, and I've booked a meeting every day. And this is like a massive commercial for Aurum Parallel Dialer, but it's like it's taken a long time. It's taking almost a year to also acknowledge to myself that my ICP is what it is.
Yeah.
I've been trying a lot of different personas. Now I'm just like, no, I'm calling companies between 10 salespeople and up to 50 salespeople, because if they have anything more than that, then 50 to 100 sometimes. It depends on the growth.
Yeah.
But if they're between 10 and 50 salespeople in the sales departments, then they haven't had the time to set in motion of the training, the setup of CRM.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they don't have enablement. They don't have these things the same way. And then also only calling like VPs and CROs on that. Because then it's I called a lot of different people, and it's but it's so I'm like, when I hear like people are still like saying like, it's not working, I think it, if you put in the reps in, it does work.
And maybe and that makes me reflect is at least at Promon is I think we have a lot to learn, and we're not good enough yet. We had the pipeline Thursdays. I don't remember you with Salesforce, where everybody had an education in the start of the day. Here's the campaign. Here's the narrative. Go call, do it, and then we reconvened in the afternoon. I was thinking of doing that with Promon, or I will do, but I also take your advice on that. Is if you do a little bit every day, then maybe your tone will be different.
It changes the way that I'm looking at cold calling right now, because I'm not 26 years in, I'm 15 years in my sales career.
Yeah, exactly.
And I still, until like now 3 weeks ago when I started doing it consistently, got a little bit nervous, a little bit like, a little bit ticklish in my stomach. Oh, they're gonna yell at me. I'm gonna hang up. Oh, they're gonna say dumb shit. Like
exactly.
And I,
which is totally natural, right?
And they, like one guy told me like, an advice: stop this. This is nonsense. I'm like, well, thank you for your input. Or another, I think you're worth maybe $1 per user per month. And I'm like, well, thankfully I have clients that is paying much more than that.
Exactly.
So I appreciate your candor, but you're wrong. Like it's, and also, but it's, so I think like it's a little bit every day, and creating the culture of that it's, like, and I think that's also that it's okay to not, be the best in cold calling. And like, it's okay. It's, celebrate that you're actually doing it, rather than, maybe, because then the results will come. If you just, and I've seen that in Aurum, like they are very good. They even when they do demos, they even like do live calling in front of you. And like their top performers, he's always like, oh, if I'm having 5 minutes between meetings, I just go in and click a little bit, because maybe I'll get one meeting.
Wow.
Yeah. So she, but then obviously you have to have the sequencing, and you have to have the cadence of doing those things, right?
And I've not seen that many. I've seen some, and there's many A's that are not fond of calling at all.
Yeah.
So I think the only danger with that, and I'm just, thinking of Promon and how I would do that. Firstly, my team is very scattered around. So, of course, we have hubs a couple of places, but we also have sellers that are sitting in Dubai alone, or in scattered around US and so on. If I'm giving them the freedom to say, call a little bit every day, I'm not sure they will do it.
No.
Where if I get them in Thursday morning, they will get an intro, and they know that they will be measured on how many activities and how many meetings you got.
Yeah.
then I'm in better control. But I like your approach more, but I think that comes with some rigor and some
culture change.
Yes, exactly.
And then there's another tool called Nooks, which is like the main competitor Aurum. They started out by being like a sales floor. So when you're like you're sitting together, and now Aurum launched that you could also like put in music and stuff. So it's like becoming this like virtual sales floor that's addresses a little bit that what you're saying. But it's also like, where do you come from? Like, I am a cold caller, so therefore I'm, like I see nails everywhere, and that's nails is cold calling. I'm just I've been trying to fix my Google ads for a year. It's just a money drain. Like, I haven't gotten a single lead, and I've paid agencies to help me. It's not working, and then it just reinforces my belief that cold calling is the way forward. Right?
True, and you could and that's also, now we're doing the Sixth Sense, and we're doing more advertising there. We have had a consultancy trying to optimize our Google ad spend. When I came in, we were using a ton of money, no leads, and even with the sometimes hidden algorithms that are in Google and how you do ad theirs. Then we used, I don't know, ads in Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, and so on. And we've never, ever seen a customer in those markets. We're trying to optimize it, but it's still a black box.
Yeah, right? and it's also like what I've learned is that you need to be extremely specific. So like if I just do medic or medpic, I don't get any conversions. But if I put like medic in CRM, or like medpic in HubSpot, or medpic, then at least I get more clicks on site. I'm still trying, still haven't gotten a single like form. Maybe it's my website that is shit, but like this, there's but and then I also learned that the Google free advice is basically like a telemarketing scam that they just want you to increase your budgets. Because they have their KPIs is to make it as broad as possible. And everyone I speak with who is actually sitting in it in their company says, no, just think about the super intent. Like, what is the person writing in when they're doing it, and then only search for that. But it's but you're with your Sixth Sense stuff, just before we round up that, like, so what type of budgets are you allocating for creating this motion, like of
150k euros a year?
Okay, so you have 150k on the implementation, then you have had another 150k on
it's big money.
Yeah, and in Asia, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia, I mean, then you don't have the data.
No.
So what are you doing in Hong Kong?
Yeah, in Hong Kong, and we have most of Southeast Asia, no mainland China, but Hong Kong for that, all of the banks there, and then Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia is big markets for us. Actually highly regulated driven markets. So they have an incentive to have a talk with us. I think what the VP out there has done is a lot of cold outreach. They don't call that much. They do a lot of WhatsApp outreaches. So the why you now is actually quite good working out there. So, and then of course we use LinkedIn as a sales navigator as an outreach as well, because they are using that as well in APAC. And then we try to mix up cadences where we do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn. Then they respond. And then actually, if they have sort of a interest, then we switch into WhatsApp immediately, find them there, do a cold or semi-cold outreach, and then that actually works. So the Sixth Sense is only working in APAC for the very big brands that we have out there, the Samsungs of the world, HSBC Bank, Citibank, all of these kind of bigger banks, then we can use that, but way different.
So in like Hong Kong and Singapore, having a clear defined ICP, it becomes even more, because you basically have to do an enterprise sales motion.
Yes, exactly. So and an enterprise motion, and it is a different market than I was
more relationship based as well, right?
Very relationship based, and very quickly jumping into who knows who. So the motion we have there is also very partner-led driven. So we're doing a lot of partner events that is branded by Promon, and of course with the partner. And then maybe we have more frequent events there, 40, 50 people. And then we have the chance to, the leaders, me, when flying out, then it's, I don't know, having a good cup of coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever, and how they want to connect.
Yeah.
So very different.
I remember that when I was down there. It was very much creating the, I had was in Malaysia once, and I had just landed. I didn't even know that Malaysia was like a Muslim state. So I rock up in this like a governmental building, and we're having fried bananas and tea with these lovely ladies. And then, oh, you lived in Hong Kong before. I'm like, oh, how do you like it? I was great, amazing fried pork. And then like, but obviously you don't eat that. And they were like laughing. It's like, no, we don't, but we're happy that you liked it. And then we were just like, having a chat for an hour. And then I was like, your renewal. I was like, you want to see our, latest updates?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. We just wanted to see you.
Exactly.
And yeah, we will sign the contract.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and I really cherish that. There's a lot of trust. And once you have gained the loyalty, it's really hard to get rid of us and get rid of their loyalty, for that matter, if you're doing your job right. So
unless my worst advice I ever got was from my then APAC manager, who said I should just do exactly the same as I've done in the Nordics.
Oh no!
So I went in and I went full on scandal mode, pointing with my whole hand, like, I've been sent down here because you're not hitting targets,
Oh no! Yeah.
And same approach with the clients, and I was suffering from new boss syndrome, like I didn't want to admit that I was wrong, and like, so my first one-on-one I had was with the Japanese team, and then he was asking me like how his bowing on the phone was. I'm still not 100% sure if he was just fucking with me.
Maybe.
Because he was like, oh, the pronunciation, and I'm like, how do you feel like you're? And then I had one of his clients. I just said, the renewal is this. This is how it is. Contract.
Boom. Yeah. No.
And then they was like, we don't like you, so we're not gonna renew. I'm like,
but and that's, I think that's one extreme fun part of my job. Is one day I sit in Kuala Lumpur, the other day I'm sitting in Dallas, Texas, and doing negotiations, or in the Middle East for that matter, in Egypt, where the fun story in Egypt is they will shake hands and say you got the deal, but if they are not putting the hand on the heart, you can forget that deal.
Okay.
So
it's a tell.
It's a tell. So there's so many hidden body secrets, way of agreeing and way of interacting. And you better ask to their family in Egypt before you talk anything else. Otherwise, we're not doing business. So it's easy to go wrong, right?
Yeah, I remember asking in Indonesia, when they say yes, and I'm like, okay, just to confirm here, are we doing like a Viking yes, or we're doing an Indonesian yes?
Yes.
And then they were like, it's an Indonesian yes. And I'm like, so it's a Viking no? He's like, it's an Indonesian yes.
Oh, yeah. I like that. And that, of course, you have to be mindful of when you're doing it. And you would also say that in a sales world, even selling in little Nordic, Promon has 32 nationalities now, and many of them are living in Oslo, Norway, right?
Yeah.
So it's you just have to be mindful of who are you actually sitting in front, and it's a good reminder for a good sales AE, for a good VP, for a good CRO to say, okay, who's the person that I'm sitting next to, right, or in front of?
Very true.
Yeah.
Any last things that you would like to bring up?
I know why I've been in this circus, if I can use that terminology, for 26 years. It's a lot of fun, but the fun also comes with And I have, you know that I have 4 kids, right? And the younger one came to me the other day and saying, "Hey, Dad, should I go for a sales career?" And I said, "I'm not sure, because I love sales and doing sales every day, but it's so tough. It is such a hard work. It requires such a cadence, such a structure in order actually to hit the targets and how it's done now. So you just have to be mindful that it's not a marathon. It's something beyond that, right? So the rigor, the cadence, the persistence, as you call, the imposter syndrome, when you're thinking, shit, am I actually capable of doing that? Just be mindful that it's a basket of fantastic fruits, but it's also a basket of sometimes rotten eggs.
It's true, but it's also fun. You say, oh, it's a marathon, yeah, and if you want to win, you have to do like a 5-minute pace, or like even that 3-minute pace if you're like the winner of New York,
Yep.
And resilience. That's a big trait as well, right? From you did a lot of running.
I did a lot of.
Do you still run? How's your hip?
No, I have done so many crazy runs that I actually worn down my body. So it's also a little bit of a reminder that mind over body. So if you keep your mind healthy in this crazy world, then you can do crazy things. But it also, as in sales, right? And me jumping from Salesforce into Promon, that was a big chance. I had other corporates that wants to hire me. And then I said, can I do some kind of build up again? And so it's about taking chances, right? So and if you do that, goodness will come, but there will also be days with rain and I don't know, feeling not good, right?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, it is.
It's especially in smaller companies, and it's I'm king of the world, you're a piece of shit. It's like that. There's
exactly. No, so it's a good fun.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me, by the way. And
I have so many more questions. Like I could. We already almost gone for 2 hours. So
wow.
it is. You sit here in this studio.
Yeah, you get time blind, right?
Yeah, it's like this is the little part of Vegas here in Copenhagen. No, but I appreciate it and taking the time.
Likewise, and thanks for having me. And just give me a shout if you want to discuss even more.
Yeah. No, I will. I'm doing. I'm thinking about doing like a series. So I'm doing so now I'm doing since I'm in Copenhagen, I'm gonna do. I've done one I did with Alexander Christensen.
Yeah.
I just confirmed Michael Weiter, like in Antler. Christian Andersen, Snowflake.
Oh wow, okay.
And then I want to see if Niels in Accenture want to come on.
Yeah.
So a little bit like, and then I'm going to go to Oslo. So I have a couple of people up there that already confirmed for that. And then we're moving in sometime next year before summer. Then wherever we go next. So every time I go somewhere, I'm going to do like, a couple of episodes. Because then it becomes, because I think also from a brand perspective, it's like if you can create a little bit of content, it's easier to be relevant and you get more
thought leadership.
Yeah, and you really you get on that.
Good. And then just very shortly, you're talking about Snowflake. I actually just finished my book, Amp It Up. I don't know if you've read it, but it's this Slotman, which is a Dutch guy, built up Snowflake. Built up ServiceNow. Quite a straightforward book that is easy to read. Very, very down to earth. Super good advices in his book. I liked it a lot. And when you are in a startup motion and you have different stakeholders to cope with, that's actually a very good book.
I think like it's also that mentality that you have, like what is
exactly.
I did some like I went through my data point and I said, I should probably have like 200 dials a week, And because that was like, and I looked at my data, it's like, well, if you want to book any meetings, you need to step it up to 400. Like it's, so like here I am, like lolling about with 200 dials a week, and like not booking any meetings, and I wonder why. Well, your data shows that you need to have 400.
Yeah, wow.
So it's like it's this, and what is possible, and what is, what are limitations that you're putting on yourself?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'll just call the US now at 8 p.m. Copenhagen time, and then you just do it. But if you don't like push the limits.
Yeah.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we're 9 minutes until the next person
exactly.
coming. So
then we
just get out of here.